Okay, so thanks for joining me. So I have Calyn, Stephanie, Wendy, and Andrew. Hi guys. Thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Why don't you guys tell me about the venue, about the location, where you guys are at, city, give me your website address, your social media handles, all that good stuff.
Awesome. So we're Mercantile Hall. We're in Burlington, Wisconsin, which is southeastern Wisconsin, about just a hop, skip, and a jump from Lake Geneva, which is a huge resort community here. We are an industrial venue, and our capacity is about 220. It was an old, historic, turn of the century, in one of the first indoor malls, which is where the name came from, Mercantile. Go in and there'd be a little booth for your dry goods and a little booth for hardware. And that just evolved into a department store and then a furniture store for many, many years. And a few years ago, 5 years ago now, I think it is, 4 years, huge fire came through and the business was almost lost. And so through an effort of community and someone who stepped up and took on the challenge of restoring the building, it had new life. And so we came in first with we have a bridal boutique. So Bon Bon Belle is upstairs. And then Stephanie was walking by and kind of saw the condition before it was renovated, saw the condition of the building and said, gosh, that'd be such a neat wedding venue. And the rest is history. So it was just, she was inspired by the brick and the original hardwood floors from 1900 and just these elements that are so precious, and new life was born. Yeah,
that sounds good. Historic buildings are kind of a thing now, for sure, for a lot of venues, not just for weddings, but for venues in general. What made you guys, I mean, I knew you had the bridal shop, but what made you guys decide to get into this part of the business?
A 15-minute pitch. Well, literally, Wendy was going on an appointment to go meet the owner of the building, and was like, we're going to put the bridal store in here. It's going to be a bunch of offices. And I literally was like, you can't do that.
This has to have a greater purpose.
Yeah, you can't put offices in that building. It's too cool. And so literally I had like 15 minutes to pitch the idea of why she should get into the wedding venue industry. And then she went to her appointment and came back and was like, think of a name. Like, and we're like, okay, we're doing it. Yeah.
And you were a wedding photographer, so you had an eye to kind of understand, like, this would be a fantastic backdrop for someone's ceremony and their event. So
it was pretty neat. It was serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. How many events have you guys have so far at the place?
Oh my gosh,
over 150.
Yeah. Wow, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's nice.
So far.
Yeah. And so you guys are a little further from Milwaukee, right? You said, I think earlier you said, like, how many minutes?
40 minutes south.
45,
yeah. Do you guys get couples coming from that space and that area to come out to where you guys are?
State lines from Chicago, Green Bay, and Minneapolis, California. Everybody who's ever had family here or still has family here, it happens everywhere you go. To their families. But we do pull,
Texas,
hours
Virginia,
away.
And then also Madison, Milwaukee, Chicago. So
it's a nice location north of Chicago that doesn't have that it isn't as expensive, and they still get all of the same elements that they're hoping for. So it's a nice mixture for them.
Yeah, for sure. I know people here, like in Tucson. I've met quite a few people from Wisconsin, so I got to imagine that there is, like going back home to get married or whatever, right? Like, makes a lot of sense.
I actually just had a tour this morning that the mom was from Tucson.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. I was like, what?
Well, this conversation's meant to be. Look at that. So tell me a little bit about the process that couples need to go through. Like, so let's say I'm looking for a venue and I contact you guys. Usually, how do people contact you? What does the normal process look like? Let's talk about that.
So
First of all, I didn't sneak in. Our website is mercantilehall.com, and our Instagram is mercantile_hall. And if you're looking for Bon Bon Bell, it's BON_BON_Bell with an E. So
got it.
To make sure I get those in my marketing.
Yeah.
Sometimes. But a lot of the time our leads come from our website or our social media channels. I would say 85% of our leads come through our social media channels or directly through our website. We do some advertising in other areas outside of social media and, digital marketing, but really kind of where our bread and butter comes from. And then, so my job's done once they come in, and then I hand them over to these lovely folks to get them in here. So
yeah, do you feel like more couples are using, say, Instagram, and I know a lot of couples use Pinterest. Do you guys get a lot of people coming through Pinterest, or do you feel like it's coming more from Instagram?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I would say more. We always joke that we've gotten older, but our couples stay the same age. Yeah. And so the platforms that they are on change based on what's popular at the moment, right? So literally Monday, I'm doing an entire day of TikTok videos, which
there you go.
I fall into like mom of TikTok realm. So it's kind of funny for me. But we try to play into where our couples are and where they're experiencing, where they're spending their time, so that we're there when they're looking for wedding venues. We show up in their feed and we're prevalent in spaces. So a lot of times right now that has been Pinterest and Instagram are probably, I would say Pinterest is number one and Instagram is a very, very close second. Facebook being the third, and then hopefully TikTok will be right along there with it. So we try to do a blend of content, and also posting on Google My Business has been a huge jump for us that we've seen a lot of success with. I don't think a lot of other businesses kind of are aware that how the value of that can be. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think people in general, when they're looking for something, they just usually go and search, right? Like I have a need, I go and search. That's just what I do, right? Whether it's on my phone or whatever. And if you don't show up, then you're not in the forefront, right? Usually if people are referring you, then that's different, right? So if you're getting a lot of people that have been to you or that are customers, you've been in business for a while, you'll tend to get more referrals. I noticed businesses that I've interviewed that have been in this for a long time tend to have a lot of referrals come from their, I'm talking like 15 or 20 years or more in the business. They just have a lot of people that they've already done business with, right? So they just get more referrals. But when you're getting started and you're younger in this space, I mean, yeah, you got to be out there in front of people and you got to be in a place where they're going to get you. Like you said, where are they at? They're on TikTok right now. They're wasting hours of time watching TikTok videos.
And Wedding Pro is a great vessel for us too, with
Wire
and that. So that's really helpful to have the redundancy across the major boards there as well.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Like it's, where are the couples at? That's where you have to be, right? Where are they at? You need to be there so that you can be in front of them, right? So, okay, so what happens after, you get them in, Calyn, right? You get them in. What do we do next? What's happening?
We have a whole inquiry process where we welcome them basically to the family. We send them the pricing guide. We have a very extensive pricing guide to really spell out everything for them so that there's no hidden costs anywhere. They literally get, if you want to book, this is what it's going to be. And then we work on figuring out a date for them to come in. A lot of times couples book within, the first week or so, but others take a little bit longer to decide. And so it's just a matter of checking in with them and making sure that, hey, we're still here, we're still thinking of you guys, and sending them content even, when's the right time to book? Or, hey, did you see these pictures of Susanna outside, which is our outdoor camper bar? So just kind of keeping them in our minds and then also allowing them to not forget about us either. So
yeah, one, they take time to make decision, right, to come in. I know some venues that aren't upfront about pricing and stuff. Did you guys find that, being upfront about pricing and here's what it is has been more helpful for you?
Yeah, it's huge. Even during a tour, we will give them a proposal, like a mock proposal. We'll talk through what they really are interested in and then give them the number right there if they want to change anything even before they book, or if they want to see it, like even a mock bar package, for example.
Yeah.
You can really just totally drafted up for them. And so there's no hidden cost at all. They can really see it.
That's cool.
While we're sitting there with them.
So now, does it usually include everything? So you guys got the space, but do you do the rentals? It's part of the package. Do you do food and beverage?
That's all outside, but some rentals are included.
Yeah.
And you had a
And we
point
have the
on-
bar package too.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Okay.
One of the pieces, going back to the pricing bit, one of the pieces of feedback that we've gotten pretty consistently from couples is that our pricing guide is much, much more thorough than what they receive elsewhere.
Sure.
And that's just, we've kind of just believed that the more information they can get earlier in the process, the better.
That's great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's the venue, and then food is outside, right? So they usually cater in.
Yeah,
You guys have recommended caterers for them and that sort of thing, or?
we have a list of preferred caterers. And kind of one of the things you were talking about earlier too is we find, those caterers are also a referral system for us too.
That's right.
Talk to couples all day long too. They may talk to their couple. I know we've gotten a couple leads from caterers websites that also are venue owners, but they list us as and
Yeah.
will find us and we're like, did you know that they had a venue? But they book
Right.
with us. So
Right.
I think it's great to have those vendor relationships as well with our photographers, our preferred caterers, our furniture rentals. So
What about planners, right? What are you guys doing anything with planners?
We do a lot of in-house coordination. We have
Okay.
planners. We welcome that, but we do have our own packages to kind of step in as more of a planner mode. We do different planning processes with them, and then it leads to being their on-site coordinator for the day and helping
That's
them
good.
with the process.
It really
Yeah.
helps too, because our coordinators know the space in and out, and
Yep.
so they just slide in and can do everything really effectively without that ramp up period of
Right.
Getting
or
to know the
the middleman. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even when the planners are here, they're still relying on us to work with them. And so that's where a lot of times the cost is more effective to go straight with us, because we know the space, we know the vendors that are walking in, we know the staff that are here, we know where everything is. You need
Yeah.
so it just is a lot more comfort for them knowing that we are here with them all day.
That's cool. That's cool. So what advice, like if you had to give some couples advice about looking for venues and that sort of thing, and what they should be thinking about, like what questions should they be asking other venues when they're looking? What advice would you give them? What questions should they be asking?
So even when they get here, we ask them, what's most important to you? Have you seen anything elsewhere that you like or don't like? You want us to touch on anything? Maybe they have a question right on the pricing guide that they saw and they want to just get it out of the way and ask it. And so we try to learn what's going to work for them. And so one of our key things that we want people to connect with when they get here is the overall vibe. And that's the space and us. We want to have a great connection with them. We're going to be working with them a lot. And so to build that relationship with them right from the moment that they walk in the door, that's super important.
she becomes friends with most of the
friends.
people that she tours.
Yeah.
So it makes it hard to not book because they're like, we like her so much. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of
It's a
like,
smart strategy, Wendy. It's a smart
So-
strategy.
I think it
And
comes
it's
down
genuine.
to three things, which you touched on. One, vibe and price
Oh, yeah.
and capacity. Does it fit your friends and family? And is it a good fit on those three? And then from there, then they can really get detail oriented on, or specific on, flow or the outside area or things like that are near and dear to their hearts or their parents' hearts or whomever,
And the value.
and the value.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if I can throw one other thing in there that I think that sometimes people who are early in the process aren't necessarily thinking of is kind of, they're pretty focused on what's in the four walls, but they shouldn't forget what's outside of those four walls. So like one of the things we talk about is, the hotel accommodations that are very close to us, the fact that there are, late night places to go after our venue. There's
Parking.
parking, exactly.
Free parking.
And so they really need to see the bigger picture about
the experience
about
of
the
their
whole
wedding.
experience for the entire wedding.
Yeah, that's a
Exactly.
good point.
Yeah, that's true, because you don't really think about that. That's a good point. People mostly just thinking about what's in the four walls. And I've been to venues where I didn't know where to park because I couldn't, this is a conference, right? You go into the conference, you don't know where to park. And it's like it's not clear where you're supposed to park, so you just park somewhere.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
it's super expensive. I went to a wedding in Chicago and it was like $65 just to park there. I was like, what's happening? You know, like,
Right? That's crazy. Yeah. So add that to your cost of going to their wedding, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
you know, and those are added costs for your guests too. Hotels are going to be cheaper around us, and restaurants and bars are going to be cheaper than having a drink in the city somewhere, you know,
Yeah,
or
for sure.
at a hotel in the city. So,
What other stuff is there to do around there, like after hours? Like after we're done with the event?
County bars, which people love.
Yeah. Okay.
Wisconsin's sort of known for that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Really?
us from
Yeah.
Tucson, that live in Tucson now from Wisconsin. Like we've got some really good like local bars that
Taverns.
just kind
Kind
of
of
a
a-
very Wisconsin vibe
Yeah.
in a great
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, there's some guys that some programmer guys, some software guys that I hang with sometimes, and their big thing is going to dive bars, and so they like to find dive bars in Tucson and go. I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't drink, so I'm like, yeah, I'll go hang with you guys. That's it.
We have some great, you know, classy bars. You know, you can get some small bites and things like that. But then we also have the county bars. So there's a great
Yeah.
mix, and all in walking distance too.
Nice. And then hotels. You said hotels in the local, like nearby. So it makes it easy for people to come have a good time. Stay nearby without having to drive back out to where they're going, and makes for a great time. So awesome. How long you guys only do one event a day?
Yeah,
Yep.
so they get the whole space, and they usually will incorporate our outdoor area. So I know she had mentioned it, but we have this really cute vintage camper bar that they've named Susanna after both of their middle names. It's so cute. It's her birthday this week too, so she's getting some extra.
Very spoiled.
But so couples will blend the outdoor space, whether it's their ceremony, and then come inside for, you know, dinner and dancing, or vice versa. So it's a nice way to incorporate being inside and outside, especially in Wisconsin. But even in January, we've had some gorgeous weddings that have incorporated that outdoor space, which not every venue has, and not every venue, especially in Wisconsin, even would even attempt to have that because of our humidity,
Our beautiful
and
weather,
snow, and
snowy weather.
that mush season we get sometimes. So yeah, so I think that's one thing that our couples really like, is that they have this blend of space, but they get the whole space to themselves. They're not sharing it with another couple getting married outside and they're in here. This
That's
is their,
nice.
for their rental period.
Yeah, and it's for the whole day pretty much, right? Like come in, set up, yeah, awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the business side of things. So for you guys as a business, what would you say has been working well for you maybe over the past couple of years?
Go ahead.
You know, I think what's gone well for us really is our team. We have had a couple of really strong additions in terms of, you know, our new marketer and new event managers, and so you can't really overemphasize the importance of the connection between the event manager and the couple. And so having that right event manager that reflects your values, that you are proud of, that you trust, you can't, you know, if I could give any advice to any venue, it's like work on your culture first and the rest of it will flow. So that's what's worked well from us really from the beginning. It's not really like something that's worked, you know, recently. It's kind of from the start, and that's really a credit to these two. So that's, I think, the number one thing. What would you add?
We also are pretty systematized.
Yeah.
We
That's
have
a word, yeah.
it came out, and then I had to like we have standing meetings on a weekly basis that are always attended, and we go through the same process. We're very careful about making sure that we're communicative and we're timely and we're very responsive. And so these kind of things that we borrowed from our corporate background,
Yeah.
we'll put into that. And I think the couples feel and appreciate that sense of organization and commitment. And that's so just repeatable processes, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because you know, sometimes small businesses don't think about they don't think about some of the things that larger corporations do, the reasons that they do them. You know, it's to provide efficiency within their own organization. So if you can learn from that culture, and bring those down into what you do as a small business, it actually makes a huge amount of difference where it makes sense, right? You know, I work in software development outside of doing the wedding report. And one of the key things for like agile software development is a daily stand-up. And what we do is we talk about like, where are we at? You know, and you really just kind of like touch base with each person to say, what are you working on today? You know, because you already know what your work is. You've already planned it out. You have what they call sprints. And so you know what people are working on. But you stand up every day and talk to each other and go, hey, what are you working on? Do you need any help? Is there any problems? And that's really, you're just trying to communicate with each other. And I think that's so helpful. Like you said, standing up with each other as a team meeting every week and just kind of talking to each other, making sure we have issues resolved and stuff like that is so important. So that's really good stuff. What else?
I think we're also really focused on growth. So we have this team who has just created this incredible tightly woven fabric from a culture standpoint and a process standpoint, and just looking ahead to the future. One of my mantras is complacency is the root of all evil, and that's because I'm probably a change junkie by heart. But there's always this what's next. And so whether it's making an improvement to our service or our foundation or the product or whatever, or the pricing or whatever, we're constantly looking through that lens, and hoping, you know, in the future to kind of share maybe some of those lessons with other venue owners so that they don't make the mistakes that we've made, but really just kind of always kind of focusing on growth in some capacity.
That's great.
Growth meaning improvement, right?
Yeah.
Not just, we're not growing the enterprise necessarily. It's that we're never settling.
Evolution,
We're never settling for what we are right now. And I mean, it's the continuous improvement. I mean,
how do you become more efficient, right? As a company, right? How do you become more efficient? Because the more efficiencies you can add into what you do allow you to actually make more profit and be a better business in the long run, because you can do stuff with the profit, right? It's not like you're just, you know, the purpose of a business is to make profit, and the profit is then put back, you know, sometimes put back into the company to grow it and make it bigger.
All of those skin knees that you get learning, right?
Yeah.
You pick yourself up and you move on. But every experience that we've had from the time of inception we've learned and we've grown from that. And it's so powerful. It's you know, as hard as some of those
Lessons
are, they're not always. There is a sense of just some fun, but also just moving forward, just having that behind you and knowing that you've just gotten a little stronger somehow.
Yeah, we try not to make the same mistake twice. Right?
That's good.
Made plenty of mistakes over the time, but you know, shame on us if it happens, you know,
again and again. Yeah.
So our you know, that has changed kind of how the way we deliver service. That has changed our policy, documentation, our agreements. Everything is kind of always evolving, hopefully for the better.
Yeah, good.
We need to get that feedback too. It's so healthy from, you know, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's fabulous, and just taking that mixture and putting it in a blender and just really kind of using everything that you hear.
Yeah.
You
like, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I like good feedback. I like the positive stuff, but tell me what the bad stuff is, right? Because that's the things that I need to fix.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, what would you say has been like your biggest challenges over the past couple of years, outside of what's happened with, you know, recent events, COVID? Let's talk about what your challenges have been prior to that.
Prior to March, what were our
Different world that we were in.
I think one thing that all venues are experiencing is just the increased competition. There are so many new venues that have opened up in the last couple of years. Someone we work with just compared it to kind of how restaurants were 15 or 20 years ago, where it was kind of a hot thing that kind of anybody thinks they can do. And so we've just seen a lot of competition spring up. Doesn't really affect how we operate. We kind of try to keep our eye on the ball.
Yeah.
But there's no denying that has changed the competitive
Situation.
landscape.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's because people just want different things? Or do you feel like people are like, well, it's the wedding space. People are always getting married. It's a good opportunity. Let's get in. Because the challenge is going to be there's so many competitors in the space. It puts a lot of pressure on pricing. And then all of a sudden all these venues can't, maybe eventually it's a good thing. Some of them are going to go out of business. But, what do you feel like where it's coming from?
Well, speaking as a business owner, I hope no one goes out of business, right? We want the best really for everyone in the industry, really from our hearts. That's my initial thought to what you're saying.
Yeah, but demand is not always going to be there. Less people are going to get married, and so eventually it's the venues either going to have to figure out how to do other things, and they're going to have to compete in their space and up their game every time, or they're not going to make it. I mean, it's just the nature of business. In fact, I think 50% of businesses don't even make it past 5 years. If you made it past 5 years, you're doing really good. And so I agree with you. I'd hate to say that anyone goes out of business, but what do you feel like is the reason for the increased demand? Like, is it because people want different things, or is there really that much more demand for event space?
I think you're talking about increased supply. Yeah. And I think people look at this business and they go, well, if you've got a pretty space, that's really what it takes. And to kind of go back and kind of repeat ourselves from before, it's so much about the relationship between the event manager and the couple, and understanding what they're going through and what they need and how to serve them, in addition to providing a beautiful space. So I think my impression is that people sometimes get in kind of knowing a very limited portion of what they really should know to survive and thrive in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter to the two options that you suggested, and it's just that, to your point, they've got a barn or they've got a beautiful space. It's easy, and there is a lot of learning that goes into play, and certainly having experience in the industry is so beneficial.
Yeah.
Just to understand the dynamic of the relationships and the demand on what will be you or your staff and the facility that you're offering up. So
yeah. Well, one of the things, like, we have a lot of barn venues in Wisconsin. That's just a norm. So honestly, like, I don't think it's coming from a place of couples looking for more variety. I think it's the owners thinking that they can do it,
I gotcha. Yeah.
It's different. It's not like couples are reaching out being like, I need more barn venue options. It's people deciding that this is what we're going to do with this beautiful space.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, is there so much demand that there's just not enough space to fulfill the demand, right? Well, we might have a little bit of that at the end of this year and some in the next year, but or is it more from the space where you just said, Stephanie? Like, is it, I've got this nice space. It's easy enough to put it in, make it into an event venue, even though I don't know anything about it. Let's do it. Let's see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
I also think, looking at our target of the age range, the people that are typically getting married in their early 20s or even into their early 30s, it's typically where most of our couples sit. That doesn't mean that it's always there, but those couples in general are looking for unique. They want their wedding to be different than every one of their friends' wedding, and they want a different vibe. They want to provide a different experience. This generation is very much leaned in on the experience because they won't go out so much. They're on their phones. So when they do actually do something, they want to have it to be tangible and things and so I think that's one of the things that I've noticed so much that resonates with people is when you come into our space, it's an experience in and of itself with the brick and the different features of our venue. And I think sometimes venues get started and they're like, oh, I can do this. And they don't think about all those little details that create the experience. You can put up a table and have people sit down, but if the couple's not resonating with that experience, I just don't think that they're
Yeah.
answering what the couples are needing.
I hear a lot when people, even guests, walk into the room, they're like, oh, it's like Pinterest in here.
Yeah.
Or they're, taking photos by the brick wall or outside. Like, it's very social media friendly to be in the space. And it's a beautiful enough space that you don't need to add a whole lot to it design wise either. And so that's very comforting to our couples too, is they don't need to spend a fortune to make the space look how they want it to look because of what they've seen on Pinterest or, Instagram, whatever. They can literally craft this vision and this experience for their guests just by simply adding some small details into this.
Yep, that makes sense. Totally makes sense.
So, and that also becomes a challenge for us as when we talk about those growth or continuous improvements, it's finding those, bringing in like a camper bar. We have games that couples can play. We're talking about doing, or we have a bonfire kind of experience that they can have. So it's finding ways that continually improve your venue to add more experiences throughout their day, throughout the time that they're having their guests here, to be more enticing and to answer that need of what couples are looking for.
That's a huge trend too, as you watch kind of your couples go in and out of these social media platforms and things they're exposed to. Experiences are becoming, an absolute part of their day. And so the more that we can craft that and that they can enjoy that, we're seeing a good response to that.
Yeah. Well, they want to share it, right, with online. They want to share it on their Instagram or their whatever, right?
Absolutely.
They want those hearts, man.
That's right. All right. So I'm going to ask you guys a different question here for each one of you. So, Calyn, how long, like if you went back 5 years from today, what is the one thing you would go back and tell yourself?
Start here sooner. Just kidding. So I'm a fairly recent hire. I owned my own marketing agency prior to this and have come in. I really just fell in love with working with them. But I think that just in general, I think that in the wedding industry, I think it's just always be aware of what's going on in front of you. Don't set on what feels comfortable because then it gets easy. So I'm also a change junkie. That's why Wendy and I get along so well. But it's always finding a way to stand out, a way to voice what's going on or be a participant in what's happening. And don't just rest on it. Like, we could have had the same pricing guide for 5 years now, right? But we don't. We keep tweaking it because it's answering what's happening around us and what hearing our couples need. And I think a lot of times I see, and across a lot of different businesses, it's like, oh, I figured it out. I got the secret sauce. I'm good to go now. Like, I'm going to ride this road for the rest of my, and those are the ones they call me and they're like, well, that didn't really work, Like, well, so
can't do that.
Be any advice for after any 5 years ago, but I wasn't, I don't know what I would have told myself. I'd have been like, well, talk to them and get there soon.
Well, we opened up like 2016 was when we became a company.
Okay, so 4 years. We could go 3 or 4 years ago. How about that? Stephanie, same question. What if 3-4 years ago, what would you go back and tell yourself?
When we were opening, we always talk about, like, whenever something comes up and we're like, oh, we were babies. Like, we would give things away, and it's just like, we've learned so much with what our value is here and what we have to offer and how that is different than what other venues offer. And so to put, value into the space with just your people that work here as well. And I would say, we've had some bumpy roads along the way for sure. And we've learned what kind of staff we need here and the type of environment that we want for people to be working in. And thankfully, Wendy and Andrew are amazing to work for. And so it's very comforting to know that we have like a safe space here to, to feed off of each other and get ideas. But I would say definitely, I wish we would have known what we know now with pricing and value, because we were too cheap.
We were scared. I was scared.
Wendy was scared.
I was
we left
scared.
money on the table. But we had some great
course.
weddings out of it. We've made some great relationships with those couples. They feel like they're still part of the family. I still have couples that come in with now their babies and kids, and they come back on their anniversary to take pictures outside. And so it was worth it.
Yeah.
Even as cheap as we were worth
Well, those are all learning experiences. I mean, it's like, when you're a new photographer or planner, you have to get started somewhere. It's not like you just can jump in and, you have to get started somewhere, and you basically, you guys know, right? You have to make changes along the way, and you learn, and you make those adjustments. And as you make the adjustments, you see things change, and, you continue down the road. I mean, that's part of it. Wendy, what would you do? What would you go back and tell yourself?
I know exactly what I would do. And 5 years ago, I would have said, hey, it's going to take money to make money. And when I was nervous with pricing and just, our positioning in the marketplace, ads, if I could go back, I would not have been as nervous to let go of that money, rather reframe it in my brain and invest it, and know that reach and that exposure is going to just help us rocket to the screens of everyone out there that we need to touch. So that would be my lesson, was invest in the advertising, because that moment when you're new, and Wedding Pro was a fantastic resource for us in terms of advertising.
Yeah.
And they coached us, and they said, when you're new, you are going to be at the top of everyone's radar screen. And it really was true. We saw this spike that was incredible.
Yeah.
I had the wherewithal to be like, double down. I think I would have done it had I been able to tell myself 5 years in the rear.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Andrew.
Wendy took mine.
And then they hired me to take care of it. So it's fine.
No, I would, I totally agree. Like, reinvestment in the business, it can be really scary. And, we have, when we first started, we had Mercantile Hall, and then we added this outdoor space called the Herb Garden. And that took a lot of money and investment and time and all that, but it has paid back so well in terms of experience and just our ability to sell more dates. And so that has been true, whether it's, investments in the facility, or investments in more headcount, or investments in training, or just when you pour back into the business, at least this business, it really comes back to serve you really, really well.
Yeah. So just to tag on that a little bit, I know a lot of times people businesses get bombarded with a lot of things that they might want to invest in, right? Because everyone's trying to sell you something. How do you decide as a business owner, what are the right investments, right? Like, is it headcount? Is it opening up the new space in the back? Is it, what is the right investments, and how do you make those decisions and come to that point?
It's so hard to have like a rule of thumb on that. I think you look at what the menu of options are in front of you, and what I do is you can keep me honest here, people, but like, I really try to listen to the team, right? And what do they see is needed?
And with regard, can I piggyback? When it comes to staff, and what we learned for a long time, it was just the two of us. Will they pay for themselves? Will they come in and be able to be a revenue generator? Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes they're ancillary, and that's good. If they fill a need that help you generate revenue, that solves that. Then you can kind of park that, I think, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the critical component, and then just knowing you're just trying to ascertain, which Andrew is really good at, what's the ROI based on each investment. It was scary when we were going after Susanna, our camper bar. That was a huge investment, and she's a wonderful selling tool, and so she makes a lot of people happy, and so that has been very rewarding. And that's just good. As scary as it is and nerve-wracking, kind of having the ability to kind of forecast that is a little quiver. Yeah,
it's good.
I've got one other thing I would tell myself
from
a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because taking hers was for having the same as little cheap. I would tell myself, and I would suggest to any other person in this world, go get a coach. We got a coach a year or so ago, and they've made a really big difference for us. And sometimes, no matter how good you are or how good you think you are, you always have blind spots, and a coach will help you kind of get honest with yourself about where you can still improve, or where you need other people to be better at what you're not so good at.
Where your
I
capacity limits.
I was going to say, when you guys were talking, was like ongoing education. We've gone to different, like corporate event kind of things, and we've also read various books, and we've had the coaching, and so to always be willing to learn and adjust and be flexible with the fact that you may not know everything. You're always learning from other venues, from other people in the industry, and so you have to accept that there's always something that you can grow from.
Yeah, that's good. Those are all good. Thank you. Last question. What's your most inspirational or best or worst wedding story? Your choice.
Inspiration.
I don't have a bad one.
Due to Corona, I have yet to see one. So I'm hoping the next one is mine. So I'll let everyone else answer. But I started in end of February, and we haven't been able to have one. So.
We had a really interesting inquiry. So this couple came in and they said, we want to do a Game of Thrones wedding. Can we get on your rooftop with arrows at the gate as they're coming in? So that was kind of an interesting request, and we actually had the wedding on New Year's Eve?
Yeah. They had a winter is coming wedding.
Nice.
And it was freezing cold. My fingers were numb. It was great. But it was really fun and a great experience, and it was lightly snowing, and so it was fun.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
He was out there snow blowing and and squeegeeing just to make sure there was no snow out there. It was quite an event, but absolutely gorgeous and unique.
Yeah, that is totally unique. Yeah, that would have been a lot of fun.
Outdoor space it's not grass, so we're not worried about people having to walk through a foot of snow or having to be soggy and muddy. Like, you can have an outdoor ceremony very easily just by us power washing or snow blowing.
Nice.
A little grease into it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. It was nice to meet you.
All right.